Good Friday afternoon. It is September 13th, 2019, and we're talking about the tropics. We have PTC number 9 that's going to become Humberto within the next 24 hours, and plus a couple other waves out in the Atlantic basin that bear some watching in the coming days and weeks. So what is PTC? Well, it's potential tropical cyclone. And according to the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, it describes a disturbance that is not yet a tropical cyclone, but poses a threat of bringing tropical storm or hurricane conditions to land areas within 48 hours. This is typically a tropical disturbance that lacks a closed low, and it also allows the National Hurricane Center to issue advisories on land areas that could see some impacts. This was just put out into the open in 2017, so it's relatively a new kind of thing. And on our pyramid of tropical vocabulary, you see potential tropical cyclones in there between an investigative area that we call invest and a tropical depression. So it kind of fills that gap there. And then we're up to tropical storm and then eventually a hurricane, which is the latest advisory here from the Hurricane Center does show Humberto becoming our third hurricane of the year. Now, to find that closed low, we have the Hurricane Hunter aircraft that's out in a mission right now in the middle of this big cluster of thunderstorms. If, in fact, they do find a closed low, it'll likely be upgraded to either tropical depression or a named storm, a tropical storm, Humberto. As of the 2 o'clock advisory this Friday afternoon, still a PTC number 9 with winds of 30 miles per hour, getting gradually more organized. But it was combating some strong southerly wind shear thanks to a big upper-level low sitting over the Gulf of Mexico, and that's displacing a lot of the convection off to the north and to the northeast of that storm center. Well, a center that's trying to form there, but that wind shear is expected to lessen for the remainder of the day today. Now, if you look at that positioning of it, it's in a very similar area to what we had about 10 to 12 days ago with Dorian. Now, when Dorian was sitting over the Bahamas, it caused something called upwelling. We talked about this at great length in a lot of videos in the last couple of weeks. It sat over the warm waters of the Bahamas, and it upwelled the waters. It mixed it up, and it replaced the warm waters at the surface with cooler waters. And if we look back at September 8th on the sea surface temperature history charts here, it's in fact what it did. It dropped those water temperatures down into the 70s. You need around 80 or so for tropical development. However, there has been some recovery in this area. These are the current sea surface temperatures. They have jumped once again back up into the mid-80s, so it shouldn't be a problem in terms of Humberto having enough fuel to develop and strengthen. There are watches and warnings out there. Remember that potential tropical cyclone designation allows the Hurricane Center to issue those advisories. Abaco Islands, Grand Bahama, once again under a tropical storm warning, and even the east coast of Florida under a tropical storm watch for the potential of seeing some sort of impacts from the system. All right, so where's it going? Right now, it is stationary as of the 2 o'clock advisory, but eventually going to pick up that forward momentum and do a very similar track to what we saw with Dorian, although a much weaker system at this point. Kind of straddles that southeast coastline, and by the time it gets, say, around the Georgia, South Carolina state line off the coastline, takes a hard east turn and heads out to sea, potentially even threatening Bermuda. But at this point in time, notice too, it's up to a Category 1 hurricane with wind sustained, 5-day cone here Wednesday up to 80 miles per hour. Now, you can look at that and say, you know, fish storm, out to sea, not going to bother anybody. I wouldn't be so quick to discount this storm. There are some models, I'm going to show you in a second, that do this little turn back. And it wouldn't be the first time that's happened. There's been a lot of odd tracks that tropical systems have taken, and we're going to show you that in a second, too. First, we'll start off with all the tropical models here. And you'll notice that they do all kind of mimic that National Hurricane Center track out to sea, and then some of them in the long range do take them back here. Now, the ECMWF, the European ensemble here, which might not work this time around, but a little bit farther out here does start to indicate some sort of turn down to the south. Now I want to show you the GFS ensemble. Now, first of all, what an ensemble is it's the same model, the GFS, that's run several times, in some cases dozens of times, with just tweaking it slightly to see a different outcome. Look at these. I mean, this is why this is going to be such an uncertain forecast. They're everywhere, but notice there are a considerable amount of members of the GFS ensemble here that do that loop back, potentially crossing Florida and heading into the Gulf of Mexico. So with that being said, you really got to watch it closely here. And here's a look at some historical tracks along the East Coast that have had some very odd tracks. Okay, we go back to Ophelia back in 2005, Jean 2004, Dennis 1999, and Gordon back in 1994. all off the southeast coastline doing these loops, making landfalls, going back out to sea and coming back. It's not out of the realm of possibility to see it do so. So with that forecast track here, the area to monitor the forecast is very large. Pretty much you have those GFS ensembles taken into the Gulf of Mexico. I think the farthest north likely being out of the picture here, but down to the south certainly could see some issues with this out in the long term. Oh, what else is going on in the Atlantic Basin? Invest 96L. Invest investigative area, 96, 90 to 99. We use those numbers, and L means it's out in the Atlantic Basin. Just a cluster of thunderstorms out there right now, but some of the models, we don't have all of them just yet. They're not running on it yet. Take it off due west. If it does track into the Caribbean and farther south, less likelihood of recurving out to sea. However, this model here does do a little bit of a recurvature, and this one's going to be one to watch. The next name after Humberto is Imelda, and from past storms, the I-named storm is always one to watch. All right, we'll have more videos up this weekend. If you have any questions in between or any other developments that happen in the tropics and you want to know about it, you can always check me out on social media and on Twitter. Until then, hope you have a great weekend.